All right, let's get started. Thanks for tuning in to our weekly biohack workshop, where we're going to be covering the three theories of aging, or as I like to call them, the three theories of aging and disease. Now, for those of you who don't know me, just allow me a few minutes to introduce myself. My name is Marco Rodriguez. My beautiful wife, Diane, and I, we own Transformations Rehab, which is an outpatient rehab clinic in El Paso, Texas. And I say this every week because I think it's important that we acknowledge our blessings. And Diane and I are very blessed with a great team here at our clinic, and we've been able to build one of the largest neurofeedback clinics in the country. And that has its pros and its cons. As a healthcare clinic, one of the cons is that we get approached by vendors almost on a regular basis, asking us to promote their products. And most of the time, I always do my due diligence because I always like to be open-minded. But at the same time, you can't put your name on everything that comes your way. So I do my due diligence, and most of the time, it's just what I call another Me Too product that really lacks any type of scientific backing. So for years of going through this and experiencing this, I guess I became somewhat dismissive of all natural products. And I don't want to say that I was cynical, but I was highly, highly skeptical. And that's probably one of the reasons why I refused to look at the Lifevantage opportunity for almost 3 years, just simply because I thought it was another product, and just like all the other ones, that overpromises and underdelivers. I'm really grateful for my good friend Patsy Caulfield, who persisted, and she stayed in contact with me for about 3 years. And finally, I think she wore me down, and she wasn't bothered, so I can't say that. She would follow up with me, and when I was looking through my messages for those 3 years that she would stay in contact with me, I never said no. I just would say, right now is not a good time. Maybe next time, or maybe next time. So every time she'd come into town, she'd say, "Hey, Marco, I'm going to be in town. I'd really love to sit down and meet with you." And most of the time, I just can't. And so that kind of went on for about 3 years. And finally, I guess I started to feel bad, because here's just a friend, and I wouldn't sit down with her and to look at her business opportunity. And again, part of it was because I was so jaded by all of the nonsense that's out there that I just thought this was just like all the other ones. So finally, I did sit down with her just to kind of take a look at what all the fuss was about. And what I learned that day really changed my life. And I thought to myself that if this can do what they say it can do, maybe it would help my son Seth. So I'm going to share with you a couple things here. Let me start off with this here. I like to use PowerPoint just simply because I think a picture's worth 1,000 words. And let's see here. If I do that, make sure my volume is good. Yep. Okay, so, well, this is my wife, Diane, my beautiful wife, Diane. She is right now, I believe, she was in New York yesterday. She went to go see a Broadway show. She went to go see Chicago. And now she's in New Jersey visiting her family. And then that's our daughter, Kayla. Kayla is with her. And then that's my granddaughter, Destiny. So I get to take care of Destiny this week. It's been a lot of fun. And then these are our other kids. It's my daughter, Alex, and Mark, Patrick. This is Donovan Jacob. And then this is Seth. Now, you're going to want to remember this name right here. This little guy right here is a big part of our story. Because when I thought to myself, I said, if this can do what they say it can do, maybe it would help Seth. So this is Seth right here. Just a quick story on him. When he was about 7 years old, he had a closed head injury. He was at summer camp, had an accident, and it was pretty devastating. So fortunately, he survived. We did therapy with him for about 8 years. Now remember, I am a therapist, and our clinic is a pediatric clinic. We do occupational therapy, speech therapy, we do neurofeedback, and now we've started brain mapping. We did everything we knew to do to help him, not only to survive, but to thrive. And he did well, but for about 8 years, he was in a special education classes and in the program where he had accommodations, modifications, et cetera, et cetera. And he struggled with it. So I thought, well, maybe this would help him with his cognitive function. So I began biohacking with him. You're going to hear that term a lot, biohacking. Started biohacking with him. And what happened next really was unbelievable. I never, in all my years as a 30-year healthcare practitioner, did I ever imagine that this was going to happen. 6 weeks after starting this biohacking protocol, he took the STAR test. And if you're not living in the state of Texas, we have a test every year that the kids have to take. It's called a STAR test. And so he did so well on that test that they tested him again, retested him for special education, blew that test out of the water. And now he was able to test out of special education. And now he's in AP classes getting college credit. Now, I had to it took me a while to wrap my brain around the fact that these protocols did for him in 6 weeks what 8 years of therapy could not do. And that was a little shot to my ego, if you don't mind me saying. But I couldn't deny what I had seen. So I came into my clinic and I got really excited about it. And I wasn't completely convinced, but I was intrigued. So I started sharing it with people. And I shared this with, this is his grade. So check this out. So this is before biohacking. So, and with all of the accommodations and all of the stuff that he had and all the help and me going to the school every week practically, I knew all the teachers by name. I probably had all of their cell phone numbers and just communicating back and forth. To 16 weeks later, the kid is making straight A's with the exception of this class right here, this 86, which I think is funny because it's Spanish and our last name is Rodriguez and we speak Spanish. But anyways, it really just kind of caught my attention, and it caught the attention of his teachers as well. Now, this cycle, he required no help at all whatsoever. And that's really important that it helped him to go from special education to going to AP classes, and now he's crushing it. In addition to that, he was having a lot of physical issues, a lot of lack of coordination. Well, that's Seth now, right? Good looking kid. This is on his homecoming, I guess, dance. So looking sharp there. And he started to competing in judo and jiu-jitsu. Now, if you notice, he's just an orange belt competing against guys that are a lot bigger and also a higher belt. So he did really well. So I did start getting excited, and I did what anyone does when they hear something or see something really good. I started telling people about it. One of the people I told was my good friend, Anna Cox. Now, she works for us. She is our marketing director, so she's always out there in the community, visiting doctors' offices and so forth. Well, she had stopped doing that, and we literally had pulled her out of the field and stuck her in an office to help out with office work because she couldn't move anymore. Now, she had stage 3 arthritis. She was using a walker, had already ordered her wheelchair, and was using a shower chair. And there's so many other things that were going on that I just don't have time to discuss. But she says, well, you know what? I want to do this. Let me try and see what it does for me. So she starts biohacking. And it took her I think it was about 4 or 5 weeks. Same thing. She walks into the office one day, no walker. And we're all kind of like, what's going on? We started talking about it. She said that, over the last 3 days, she hadn't needed a walker. Well, suffice to say that as she progressed, she got better and better and better. She no longer needs a walker. She no longer got rid of her wheelchair, and she no longer needs the shower chair. We took her with us to Puerto Vallarta, and she hikes 3.1 miles over a mountain, or it was a big hill, but it was 3.1 miles to go swimming with the sea lions. Now, think about it. She was just 6 months prior to that, she was in a walker, using a walker, and she was about to order her wheelchair. Now, I'm not saying that we're treating or curing or mitigating disease. She still has the arthritis, but the inflammation and a lot of the pain that she's going, she just feels so much better. And I'm going to explain why that happens, okay? So as we started telling more people, we started talking to this particular person. Her name is Lori Miranda. Now, Lori has a son who was diagnosed with autism. And I started thinking about this, and I said, okay, I know, I work with kids with autism, that children with autism have several things in common. 78 to 80% of them have mitochondrial dysfunction, high levels of oxidative stress, low glutathione, low catalase, low superoxide dismutase, poor gut health, and inflammation in the brain. I thought, well, these protocols address all of those issues. So we put her son on the protocols. And it took him about 4 or 5 weeks. He walks into the office and he starts talking. He hadn't spoken before. He might have maybe responded with maybe 1 or 2 words, but he wouldn't initiate conversation. He walks in and he's initiating conversation, explaining in very good detail about his day, how he was at the water park. The water was cold, but it was hot outside, and he goes on and on and on in detail. And then he starts explaining how when he grows up, he wants to have his own business because he wants to have a taco truck. Now think about that. Just a few weeks prior to that, the child had hardly any interaction with the general public at all, anxiety around a lot of people, and he had very, very limited communication skills. So again, when you see these kinds of things happening right in front of you, even the most hard-hearted skeptic, which I wasn't, but I was pretty close, but even the most skeptical person will have, you got to deny that there's got to be something there. So what is all of this fuss about? Well, it's called biohacking, and it's a phrase that's used within the science of nutrigenomics. Now, nutrigenomics is the science of how natural compounds affect your body all the way down to your gene expression. And here's what I mean by that. So we know now, because the human genome was mapped out in 2000, we now know that you have over 20,000 genes in your body. And 10% of those genes are what they call set in stone. In other words, science has not figured out as of yet how to manipulate those genes. But that means that 90% of your genes can be affected, either up or down regulated like a dimmer switch. Let me give you an example. So we all have that the inflammatory genes. It's a part of who we are, and we need them. If you ever roll your ankle and what happens at the ankle? It swells up, right? Well, that's important. That swelling, those inflammatory genes, or that inflammatory response kicks in to protect that ankle. Now, the problem is that because of the environmental toxins that we're exposed to, the food you eat, the air you breathe, those inflammatory responses are triggered on a regular basis, chronically, if you will, okay? And that leads to all kinds of other really bad things. So the Today Show estimated that the science of nutrigenomics was going to become a $600 billion industry as more and more people are taking control over their health. Now, it used to be where, if you went to your doctor and your doctor said, take this medication, you just took it without question. Well, that's not a really good idea anymore when you consider that pharmaceuticals is part of the malpractice, which is the #3 killer in America, okay? The #1 killer in America is cancer. This is all according to the Center for Disease Control. The #1 killer is cancer. The #2 killer in America is heart disease. And #3 is malpractice. And within that category, the #1 is pharmaceuticals. So the very medications that's supposed to be helping people is the very thing that is now part of the #3 killer in America. So we want to look at things that are outside of medicine. Now, I'm not against medicine. A lot of my patients have to be on it for a while, some of them permanently. But if there's a way that you can do something naturally, why wouldn't you, right? Now, all of this, the science of nutrigenomics and biohacking has existed for decades, but it really wasn't until early 2000s, around 2004, when things really started coming to the forefront. And a lot of it happened with a particular biochemist by the name of Dr. Joe McCord. He's a 4-time Nobel Prize nominee. He is a world-renowned scientist. He's the one who discovered the enzyme superoxide dismutase. In fact, if you go get that enzyme measured, it's measured in McCord units. I thought that was kind of cool. So what happened was in 2003, 2004, he made some really significant discoveries on how these enzymes can be activated. And it caught the attention of the medical community, but it also caught the attention of the news media, in particularly John Quinones from ABC Primetime. So I'm going to show you a short clip, because what John Quinones did was he went to Dr. McCord's office and he asked for a blood test, and he wanted to test out Dr. McCord's theories. Now, that story was the lead story in ABC Primetime. Now, when was the last time that you saw the lead story in any news outlet have to do with health and nutrition? It doesn't happen very often. So I'm going to share with you this clip. Now, as you're watching it, I want you to think to yourself, did John Quinones, who is an investigative reporter, he's not there to promote or to edify, he's there to poke holes in anything that you're making claims to. At the end of the report, did John Quinones give this a bad spin or a good spin? Here's the report.
You want to get an edge on turning back the clock? Who doesn't? Well, it's no longer science fiction, but science possibility, a potential breakthrough. It may not look like the fountain of youth, but inside this nondescript building, I'm about to become part of an exciting experiment. For me, it begins with a blood test. It wouldn't be the first time I've given blood for this company. They want to check my levels of something called T-bars, which is a rough indicator of a person's actual age. T-bars can identify a condition known as oxidative stress, a kind of measure of the wear and tear on our bodies. Oxidative stress, like the rusting of an engine, is not a good thing. The problem of aging begins with the very food we eat to give us energy. As our cells burn that food, they also release toxic chemicals. Those chemicals, you may know them as free radicals, react with all the components of our cells, literally bombarding them millions of times per second, damaging all our cells. The result? Oxidative stress, and we all have it. The body fights back with a system of defenses. It makes two antioxidant enzymes, catalase and SOD, whose job is to gobble up the free radicals before they can harm our cells. So, doctor, how often do I take these? And so, here I go. With that swallow, I've just become part of a potentially landmark scientific experiment. It's called Protandim, and tests have already shown that it revs up the manufacture of those good enzymes in our bodies. More enzymes, fewer free radicals to harm us. Normally, oxidative stress, measured by those T-bars, increases with age, but taking just one pill of Protandim a day reversed that trend for everyone at every age, even for an 80-year-old. So, just what's in this seemingly incredible pill? Well, actually, its roots are very humble. Protandim is a combination of 5 plant ingredients. Some you may know: green tea or turmeric, a spice used in Indian cooking. Others, Withania somnifera and Silybum marianum, are more exotic. High oxidative stress is associated with more than aging. It's been linked to hundreds of illnesses. It's at the very center of many diseases: liver disease, diabetes, emphysema, asthma, all of these, strokes, heart attacks, even mental disease. Yes, depression, Alzheimer's disease, depression. But what about my progress? After nearly 2 weeks now, it's time to get my results. The result? My level of oxidative stress has declined dramatically. Just look at where I fall on the graph, before and after. Have we turned back the clock? Maybe not on the outside, but deep inside within my cells. Yes, indeed. We do know that oxidative stress is part of those disease processes. I don't want to wait until I'm 80 years old to find out that I should have taken it. The company that makes Protandim says its tests show the pill, made from ingredients used for centuries, is absolutely safe. For more, go to our website at abcnews.com.
Lifevantage began in a lab with a single powerful scientific discovery. A discovery that proved that people around us have more capacity, potential, and ability within them than we have been led to believe. At Lifevantage, we can no longer accept the limits of the human condition. So we began introducing the world of biohacking. The idea that you can be better today than you were yesterday. That you can take control of your own biology. That your health doesn't have to decline as you get older. You don't have to simply accept the hand you've been dealt. In just a few short years, Lifevantage has brought biohacking to the mainstream, shortening the gap between cutting-edge scientific research and the customer. Every day in research labs around the world, we are learning how much more our bodies can do for us if we only flip the right internal switches. So we're creating products that flip those switches. And we're doing it with a dedication to quality and safety and a different approach to selling those products. Sure, we could have gone the expected route. sold our products on big box shelves just like everyone else. In fact, at first we did just that. But we realized something. Our product sales were fueled by word of mouth and personal success stories, not marketing dollars. So we stopped paying big box stores and started paying our customers for what they were already doing, which allowed us to eliminate the gamble of traditional advertising in favor of performance-based payouts. And in the process, we ended up turning biohacking into a movement, empowering women, minorities, and all entrepreneurs to break societal barriers and realize what they're capable of, fueled by the power of a leveraged income. From 127 biohackers when we began to over 1 million in less than a decade. The movement has become a global phenomenon with no signs of slowing down. And our products aren't the only way we're investing in human potential. We're creating hardworking technology using AI, machine learning, and mobility to make it as easy to run a Lifevantage business as it is to take an Uber. Welcome to the Lifevantage app. Because of that first profound discovery, we are fiercely dedicated to helping others see what we have seen, to see the immense potential in those around us. It's an inspiring way to see the world. It's why the biohacker movement continues to grow at a blistering pace. It's why giving back to our communities is a fundamental core belief. And it's why in a few short years, we have expanded into 15 countries and counting and grown from one groundbreaking nutrigenomic product to over 20. It's why we now have relationships with CEOs, sports teams, and influencers. It's why Lifevantage has grown from $3 million in revenue our first year to closing in on $250 million. And it's why we will never stop. Because to change the way the world sees, you can't merely settle for different. You have to be better and engineer a world of potential in the process.
All right, I love that video every time I watch it. So in that video, when that ABC primetime report first aired back in 2005, Lifevantage was a small biotech company. It is publicly traded on NASDAQ. It's and it was doing about $200,000 in volume a year. Not really much, because it actually wasn't a marketing or a sales oriented company. It was a research company. And so when that report aired, within a week after that report airing, they received over $5 million worth of orders. Now think about that. It was the lead story on ABC primetime. It's been shown on NBC, et cetera, et cetera. And they received over $5 million worth of orders. That sounds like a good thing, right? But it wasn't. These guys were not ready for this kind of growth, and everything was back ordered for about 8 months. The stock was at $1 a share. It shot up to $20 a share, and it dropped down to 7 cents a share because of all of the turmoil. But here's the good news, is that universities from all around the world saw that John Quinones's oxidative stress was reduced by 45% in 13 days. That led many of them to contact the Lifevantage scientists and say, we want to study Protandim as it relates to whatever area of study that we're working on. So, for example, LSU, in conjunction with the Skin Cancer Foundation, found that Protandim reduces the recurrence of skin melanoma by an average of 57%. In the study, they even pointed out how Protandim suppresses tumors. Now, Johns Hopkins University over here, they had a very similar study on lung cancer with, again, very similar results. The American Heart Association, they published a 26-page article in Circulation magazine. Now think about that. American Heart Association, they have a lot of work to do, and they took the time to publish a 26-page article in Circulation magazine on its effect on cardiac health. Then the American Heart Association funded another study with Ohio State University on its effects on bypass surgeries. All right, so you also got Harvard University, Texas Tech, the National Institute of Aging, which is our tax dollars at work. They did a 10-year study on Protandim, and what they found was that it was the only natural product clinically proven to extend the life of mammals by an average of 7%. So in human years, you're talking about 5 years. Now, one of the caveats to that is that the study was only done on half the dose. So now the new study has started on the full dose. We'll have to wait and see what happens there. But I have a feeling that it's going to be a lot more than just, if half the dose was 5 years, I have a feeling that the full dose is not going to be 10 years, but it's probably going to be, because of the synergy, 15 or 20 years. That's just my guess. Okay. Now, during that report, that ABC primetime report, the word oxidative stress was used. Now, I talk to people on a regular basis, and very few people know what oxidative stress is. Well, here's the important thing, is that everyone has it. And it's such a big deal that in PubMed.gov, which is our National Library of Medicine, if you look at it, this isn't, let me explain what PubMed is real quick. So it's where your physician and other health professionals like myself, this is where we go to get our research. I don't know if you know this or not, but your doctor does not go to Google to do his research on medicine or on health. This is where we go. Because in PubMed, it has to be a peer-reviewed study. In other words, it has to be proven that it's kind of difficult to explain, so I'm not even going to try to explain it. But suffice to say that it's very difficult to get a research study in PubMed. But I want you to look at this. Oxidative stress, back in a couple months ago when I pulled this out, it was 212,000 studies just on the subject of oxidative stress. Now, why that's important is because if you know about anything about research, studies aren't cheap. In fact, they cost thousands and tens of thousands, if maybe not more, of dollars per study. So when you multiply that out, we're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars, if not trillions of dollars, used to study this little topic of oxidative stress. And yet, the average person in America has no idea what it is. So let's talk about what it is. And actually, one thing is that they found that oxidative stress, along with mitochondrial dysfunction, and I'll cover that, what mitochondrial dysfunction is, in a minute, but those two key factors are linked to over 200 different diseases. Now get this. There are over 200 diseases that are linked to two things, not 20 things or 30 things, just two things: high levels of oxidative stress and mitochondrial dysfunction. It's been linked to things like cancer, diabetes, Parkinson's, lupus, fibromyalgia, autism, ADHD, cataracts, different types of the atherosclerosis, right? And so what oxidative stress is really simple. If you cut an apple, you let the apple sit out for a while, what happens to the apple? Right, it turns brown. That's it's the oxidation process. It's the same process that occurs if you take a piece of iron and you expose it to the environment. If it gets rained on in the air, it starts to what? Rust. Well, that's the same oxidation process. Well, that same process is happening inside of your body. So I guess you could say that you're rusting from the inside out. And it comes from the food you eat, the air you breathe, even exercise, although that's not a reason to not exercise. But it comes from all these different sources, and there's no way that you can combat that amount of oxidative stress over your lifetime. So there was, you could try to eat healthy, and we always recommend that you eat healthy. But as my good friend Gianni pointed out, he found a study from UCLA that they compared spinach in the 1950s, spinach, blueberries, and several other things, kind of your antioxidants from back in the 1950s, compared them in the 1990s. And what they found was that you literally have to eat 50 some odd times more of that particular item in the 1990s just to get the same nutritional content as in the 1950s. Now that was the 1990s. I can't imagine that it's gotten much better since then. So do you really want to spend your life eating and grazing on spinach or blueberries? No, not really. So what are your options? Well, Protandim was developed and it was clinically proven to reduce oxidative stress by an average of 40% in 30 days and up to 70% in 120 days. It's been certified by the NSF, so what we say is in it is actually in it. It's been certified by the Banned Substance Control Group, so it's safe for elite level athletes. There's pictures of people famous people on the internet. That, for example, like Manny Pacquiao. I don't know if some of you know who Donny Osmond is from the Donny and Marie show. And then during one of the videos that you saw at the beginning, you saw that soccer team. Well, that's Real Salt Lake, which is a major league soccer team. And so all of those players are on the products, on the protocols, and we're the official sponsors of that soccer team. Several of the Baltimore Ravens are on it. So anyways, there's lots of different athletes that are taking it because it is safe for the elite level athletes. And then again, don't forget that study in the National Institute of Aging, which said that it reduces or it extends the life of mammals by that 7%. All right. Now, people ask me all the time, what is so magical about this little yellow pill? Well, look, it's not magic. It's science. It's just 5 simple ingredients, things that you're probably familiar with. Some of these you might even be taking. Ashwagandha, bacoba, green tea, silymarin, which is milk thistle, and curcumin, some people call it turmeric. Now, here's what's special, is that all of those ingredients in and of themselves are good. However, when you put them together in the right ratios, according to Dr. McCord's formula, they are now 18 times more powerful than if you just took them individually. So it's almost like if you ever bake bread or bake a cake, you've got all the different ingredients, but it's not just a matter of throwing in a bunch of ingredients, right, is it? It's about having the right ratios. And that's what Dr. McCord spent decades discovering and developing that particular formula. All right. Now, the protandim, what it does is it boosts an enzyme or in your a pathway in your body called the NRF2 pathway. Washington State University studied that pathway and what it does once that pathway in your body is activated. It's a series of enzymes, catalase, glutathione, superoxide dismutase, and there's several other enzymes. When those enzymes are produced, what it does is so remarkable inside of your body that Washington State University said that NRF2 may well become the most extraordinary therapeutic and most extraordinary preventative breakthrough in the history of medicine. Now, I always like to point out that the FDA prohibits us from saying that we are treating, curing, or mitigating disease. I'm not saying that, but I want you to read this quote from Washington State University about the power of NRF2. If you ever get a chance to pull up that study, I want you to look at all of the different diseases that they use or that are featured to have been, I don't want to say treated, but that's what they did. They used NRF2 to address so many different diseases. Things like, I don't know if you can see it here, HIV, liver damage, inflammatory bowel disease. There's so many of those that Washington State University used. So, you know, when I first heard that, I mean, think about it, the most extraordinary therapeutic and extraordinary preventative breakthrough in the history of medicine. Now, when I first heard that, I thought, okay, I got to find out why they say that. So when I flew up to Utah, I met with one of the chief scientists at the time, and I asked, what is it about this? Why can they say that? And here's what she said. If you think about it, you have over 200 diseases that are linked to oxidative stress and mitochondrial dysfunction. If you can reduce the oxidative stress by up to 70% in 120 days, that puts your body in a much better position to combat all of those environmental toxins. And that made sense to me, right? Now, the other thing that I wanted to look at was, if NRF2, if that is such a big deal, why aren't pharmaceutical companies going after this? And why aren't they developing all kinds of medications that are NRF2 activated? Why is it just this natural product? Well, as in my research, what I found was that there are actually synthetic versions or medication versions of NRF2. One example is Biogen is a company that developed a medication called BG12. BG12 is now known as Tecfidera. It was kind of heralded as the holy grail of medications for persons with multiple sclerosis. And their claim to fame was that it reduced the recurrence of reduced the recurrence of of multiple sclerosis by 50%. So in their clinical trials, they published their results in the Multiple Sclerosis Journal. Now, this is a peer-reviewed study. So again, when you have a peer-reviewed study, you have to put all of your results. You can't leave anything out. Otherwise, it can't be considered as a peer-reviewed study. So here's what they said, and I love it. Interestingly, Protandim, a dietary supplement consisting of herbal ingredients, was the most potent inducer and therefore may be the most suited as a therapeutic strategy. Now think about this. Biogen spent $1 billion coming up with a synthetic version of NRF2, and yet even in their clinical trials, they found that Protandim was a much better inducer. Now, one of the reasons why is because when you take an NRF2 medication, the medication does activate the NRF2, but it activates it and it stays on. It removes the control away from the cell. And you don't want your NRF2 activated all the time. Now, I'm not a biochemist, but my theory is, it's kind of like your pancreas or just like any other part of your body. If it stays on all the time, I mean, it's got to wear out eventually. Now, I don't have any scientific backing. That's just my opinion, okay? But with Protandim, because it is a natural product and it feeds the cell, and the cell is able to produce its own or activate its own NRF2, now the cell stays in control. And the cell is able to turn on and turn off that NRF2 pathway as needed. That's really what you want, okay? Now, we talked about, that was the first theory of aging, which was oxidative stress. The second one is mitochondrial dysfunction. Now, if you remember from junior high school biology, inside of every cell, you have mitochondria. It's the powerhouse of the cell, sort of the engine of the cell. It's involved in the Krebs cycle, right? Remember that? ATP and so forth. Now, what's interesting is that inside of the mitochondria, it's the only other organelle in your cell, other than the nucleus, that contains DNA. So as you eat food, it goes into your stomach. Your stomach liquefies it. It goes into your blood system or down through your digestive system, into your bloodstream, and then into every cell in your body. What processes the food or the non-food, any kind of toxins or anything that you put in your body, what processes it is the mitochondria. That's why, because of the pollution and all the toxic food that we eat nowadays, we are literally poisoning those mitochondria, and those mitochondria start to die off as we get older. In fact, there was a study that says that by the time you're 50 years old, most people have 50% of the mitochondria that they did as a youth. And by the time you're 70, you've killed off 90% of the mitochondria. You only have about 10% left. So, but it's also important in terms of diseases. Things like cancer. We now know that every form of cancer has mitochondrial dysfunction. So things like cancer, autism, diabetes, Alzheimer's, Huntington's disease, epilepsy, all of those are linked to mitochondrial dysfunction. So again, what are your options? Well, Lifevantage developed Protandim NRF1, which is the pathway that exists inside of your endoplasmic reticulum, inside of your cell, that what it does is it will promote mitochondrial biogenesis, which means the production of newer and healthier mitochondria. Big, very, very, very important to you. I went and got my blood work done. I've been a biohacker for about 2 years. And after about 14 months, I thought, hey, I'm going to go get my blood work and see how my cell is doing. My cellular age and many of my biomarkers came back consistent as a 24.6 to 25-year-old adult. Guys, I'm 52, but my cellular age is under 25. And I got to tell you, I feel the difference. My brain is processing better. My body feels better. I started working out again. I started taking MMA classes just because I felt so much better. I started losing weight. It has just been, my body just feels absolutely phenomenal. All right. So the third theory of aging is the theory of sirtuins. Let me explain that real quick. So if you look in the bottom left, you see a chromosome there and you see the tips. See how the tips are red? Okay, anytime you see red, just know that red is not a good thing. What happens is in your chromosomes, again, as we get older, those chromosomes start to fray. It's almost like on your shoelaces, that little plastic tip, you know, after over time, how it starts to break down and then your shoelaces become frayed. Well, that's sort of like what happens at the end of your chromosomes. So Lifevantage developed an NAD synthesizer, it's an activator, that will help to activate your body's ability to produce its very own sirtuins. And what that does is it puts a cap, it sort of reinforces the caps at the end of those chromosomes. All right. So now there's different ways to boost your sirtuins. One of them, if you look here with the CR, stands for calorie restrictions. You could basically go into what I call starvation mode. And once you go into starvation mode, your body goes into survival mode and it starts to produce those sirtuins. And it boosts it by about 94%. But I don't know about you. I don't want to live calorie restricted under 800 calories. I kind of like to eat, and there's some of the foods that I like to eat are high in calories. So I don't want to go that route. But Protandim NAD, all of the clinical trials say that it boosts it at least 100%. And you don't have to starve yourself, and you don't have to do anything else for it to boost your sirtuins. The closest competitor boosts it 2%. So to me, it was kind of a no-brainer. Now, here's what happens when you put all three of those together. You get what I call the trifecta. When you put all three of those together and you're boosting your NRF1 pathway, which again is the mitochondrial biogenesis, NRF2 pathway, which is your detoxifier, detoxifies your body, boosts your enzymes, and then you start boosting your sirtuins, what happens, all kinds of beautiful things start to happen. It literally acts like a turbocharger for all three working together. So if you look here, 1,563% of this NRF2 gene, the HMOX1 gene, another one, 69%, 967%. It's phenomenal. And I spoke with Brian Dixon, who is one of the microbiologists. Actually, he's the new chief science officer with Lifevantage. And what he said was that he was doing studies on this before Lifevantage. And what he found was that by boosting all three of those together, or putting all three of those together, the cells, he had some cells that were basically almost on the verge of death. The cells started to repair their own cellular membrane. They started to create newer and healthy mitochondria, getting rid of the old mitochondria. But here's what's interesting. The new mitochondria actually had corrected and the DNA had been repaired. The cell remembered how to repair its own DNA. So at the end of the study, the cells were actually younger than at the beginning of the study. Okay. Now, I am not saying that you're going to live forever, but if you're anything like me, I don't mind if I'm going to live to be 80 or 90 or 120, but if I'm going to be alive, I want to live. You know, nobody dies of old age anymore. Hardly anybody dies of old age. They die of what? Yeah, cancer, heart disease, pharmaceuticals, right? Diabetes, those types of things. I don't want to go out that way. I want to go to bed and my body says, that's it, you're done, welcome home, and I'm out of here. And every day I live, I want to live. Maybe you're like that as well, okay? So now the company took that same NRF2 technology and they put it into some different products. For example, Axio. I love, love, love Axio. Axio was originally marketed as an energy drink. They didn't really quite know what it was. But now we know that it's actually an NRF2 activator for your brain. And so there's a caffeinated version and a decaffeinated version. So if you look here, this is the nephew of Dr. Brett Brimhall. He is a physician in Phoenix, good friend of mine. And this is his nephew. Now, his nephew was having some difficulties in school. Wasn't really diagnosed with anything, but he just struggled. And, you know, if you work with kids in a clinical setting, then you know that handwriting is a big, it's something that we look at to determine and kind of get an idea of how organized a child's brain is. It doesn't necessarily work for adults, but for children, it's very telling. So after 2 weeks, look at the difference in the handwriting here. Much, much, huge difference. And of course, Axio was one of the things that I gave to Seth, which I believe helped him. It's got DMAE, it's got turmeric, and all the studies that I found in PubMed show that these ingredients, they do several things. They will boost things like your own serotonins, your dopamine levels. It also helps promote axonal biogenesis, which is creation of new axons in your brain, new connections. So think about the implications for persons who are having issues with memory or people who are kind of feeling down in the dumps all the time. It's been a great addition to the company. In fact, I was in the lobby today at my clinic, and there was a little kid that was walking out, and he was drinking his Axio. I don't know who told him about it, but he was drinking his Axio, and his mom says, I love this. I love what it's done for him. I love what it's done for his brain. And I kind of looked at her, and I cocked my head to the side. She goes, yes, and I take it too, and it's been absolutely great. So I got to call them back tomorrow and find out what kind of good things what kind of results they've gotten. But Axio is awesome. I love it. This is a study that was done by Dr. Jeff Fanning. He is a neuropsychologist in Glendale, Arizona. He did brain map studies on persons before taking the NRF1, NRF2, and Axio. This was right before NAD came out, and then 12 days later. Look at the difference. Now, obviously, anytime you see red, red is always a bad thing, right? After taking the Axio, NRF1, NRF2, he did another brain map study, and look at the difference in the brain. The green is where you want to be. Green is a very regulated brain. It's been amazing with some of my clients, and I just can't. I could go on and on forever. Now the company's come out with some other different products, put that same NRF2 technology in some of the. For example, you remember that study with LSU on skin cancer? Well, they recommended that they put that same technology in a skincare line, so they did, and it's our True Science skincare line. I mean, look at the difference here, guys. I promise you that's not photoshopped. I could tell you all kinds of stories of people who tell me that I look younger. I will take it. My wife first saw this and she thought, ooh, anti-aging. Oh, I'm all over that. It's been great. There's a few, I've talked to a couple what's called plastic surgeons and other different types of surgeons who are actually using this for their wound healing properties. Now, I got to be honest, I don't know anything about that, but I've got to go back and meet with them and really kind of get down. And I'm a science geek, so I really want to understand the science of how this product is being used for its wound healing properties. Down here at the bottom left, that's our physique line. It's a weight management system. I use it. It's been really helped me in terms of it's a prebiotic, a great fat burn, and of course the whey protein has been great. We got the world's first NRF2 activated hair care system, shampoo, conditioner, and then the serum. So look at the difference here in the hair. This is Sean Poe. He's a good friend of ours, lives in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. They have a phenomenal business, and that's pretty cool. I kind of was losing my hair, and I started using it, and my hair started growing back. My wife kind of looked at me, and she says, I don't know if I like it with you having hair. You've never had it as long as I've known you, so I don't know. I might be in trouble if I let my hair grow back. Here is the Pet Tandem. Pet Tandem, of course, there have been a lot of studies on different types of mammals. People started giving Protandim to race horses and started finding that their times were getting better. The oxidative stress was less. The injuries were lessened. And because it's certified by the Banned Substance Control Group, it's not a controlled substance, so they can give it to the horses. Then people started giving it to their race dogs. Well, eventually it made it down to people were giving it to their pets. So because that's a big market, they came out with their own NRF2 activated pet care stuff, Pet Tandem. All right. Lastly, as far as the products, is the probiotic. Look, probiotics are extremely important because of the food that we eat nowadays and all of the preservatives and toxins. We are literally destroying the lining of our gut. And that's leading to all kinds of problems that are all traced back to things like leaky gut. Leaky gut is exactly what it implies. Your digestive system develops ulcers and perforations so that all the toxins that are supposed to go out of your body are now being leaked back into your body and recycled in your blood system. And that leads to all kinds of bad things. Things like sinus and sinus issues, chronic bad breath, things like arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, headaches, a lot of that. Think about it, headaches, fibromyalgia, all linked back to things like leaky gut, having a poor gut health. Look at this, depression, anxiety, ADHD, skin issues, all of that we now know is associated with having really poor gut health. So it's really important, if nothing else, take care of your gut. Now, people will ask, how do you get these products, right? Are they available in store and so forth? And originally they were. After that ABC primetime report, the company decided they kind of grouped and they said, okay, we got to get our product out to the market because people are asking for it. So they started doing it through what everybody else does, through these big box stores, things like companies like GNC, Whole Foods. I think Sprouts was part of it, right? Now, it was a good idea, but it didn't do very well. It wasn't selling very well. And one of the reasons is that if you've ever been inside of a GNC store, there's so many products. And the clerks who work there, bless their hearts, they don't know everything about all the products. And they're not going to take these 30, 40 minutes explaining how these products works to you. They're not going to do that. So the product was sitting on the shelf selling less than one bottle per store per month. Meanwhile, you've got all of these different studies that are coming back saying that Protandim works 100% of the time on 100% of mammals. You've got the Washington State University study that says that this may well be the most extraordinary therapeutic, most extraordinary preventative breakthrough in the history of medicine, and yet nobody knows about it. So they regrouped, hired some consultants, and what the consultants concluded was that Protandim and this product, this series of products, that it was a product whose story needed to be told person to person by people who had already experienced the results. Remember what I said at the very beginning. Who did I start sharing this with? Well, I shared it first with my son Seth, and then after I got those results back, what did I do? I told Anna, I told Lori, I told a few people here and there, and that has grown over the last 2 years because they got good results, so they told more people, and they told more people, and in less than 2 years, just that little step of faith has led to over 625, or very much closing in on 650 clients in less than 2 years, just because we decided that we were going to share something that we knew was working. Now, the company has done very well too. Once they switched over to that person-to-person, they grew from $2 million to over $228 million. But here's the other thing that it did. It gave people like you and I the opportunity to partner with them and get paid to do what? Well, we take the product, and when we get the results, what do? We tell other people about it. And when they get the results, they tell other people about it. And so every time that somebody you told buys the product and they keep using it month after month after month, you get a small commission for it. Now that small commission could actually add up. So if a person has, for example, Pro 3, a person with Pro 3, they have volume of about $5,000 per month flowing through their business, right? They shared it with a few people who shared it with a few people, et cetera, and everybody's got their own unique number, and that number is tied to your number. So a Pro 3 has about $5,000 in volume. They're making about $636. Now think about that. It's not a lot of money. However, if you had a 9-to-5 job and you were an hourly employee, how many hours of overtime would you have to work to make an extra $636? And what happens the next month? You sort of got to do it again, right? And the month after that, and the month after that. And as soon as you stop working those overtime hours or that second job, the money stops. Well, what if you could tell someone one time, or a group of people one time, and after that, every month, they're going to continue to buy the product. Why? Because it works. And every month, because you showed that customer one time, every month, they're buying the product and you're getting paid, right? So what we're talking about here is leveraged ongoing income. Now, maybe, $636 is not a big deal to you. Maybe you're interested in Pro 5. Diane and I are Pro 5s. Average Pro 5 is making about $2,900 per month. And for some of you who are interested in more of the kind of making more money, bigger money, maybe Pro 7, Pro 8, Pro 9, maybe that's what you're really more interested in. Now, I'm going to make a point here. I didn't make this point before. Lifevantage is a publicly traded company. It's a biotech company on NASDAQ. So our numbers are heavily scrutinized. And so our reporting has to be accurate. Otherwise, we can get into a lot of trouble. So you can rest assured that there are people who are making this kind of money. My good friend, and I'll kind of share her with you here in a few minutes. She's a Pro 9. and almost pro 10. And yes, she is making that kind of money. So don't get hung up on that. If you're interested in developing your own business and you're interested in that aspect of it, just get back with the person who invited you. Let them know what you want to do, what your interest level is, and we'll set up a game plan for you. All right. Let me kind of run through this. If a person is interested in, if you're interested in just becoming a customer, there's no additional charge to you, right? You just enroll as a customer, start using the product. If you are interested in becoming a partner with this company, and qualify for those bonuses, then you would enroll as a distributor. And there's different packs. They can range from $350 for the silver, $650 for the gold, and then $1,250 for the platinum. Again, get back with the person who invited you, and they'll be able to share with you what the difference is, and then you can figure out which one best fits your needs. Okay? Now, anytime I'm looking at a business, there's a few things that I look at. I've looked at lots of businesses over the course of my life, and there's a reason why I chose our clinic, and there's a reason why I chose Lifevantage and not other businesses. When you're looking at a business, there's a few things that you need to keep in mind. Number one is, does it provide an exclusive product or service? In our case, we're talking about a product, right? What did I say was the reason why I dismissed so many of those other companies that had been presented before? Well, they didn't have the scientific backing, yes, but also they were what I call Me Too products. You can get those kind of products anywhere. Our products are exclusive. They are award-winning, triple patented, and category creating. There are no other natural NRF2 products that are like ours, and we have a patent for the next 20 years. So for the next 20 years, you're safe. And I don't mind competition, but I would much rather not have competition and be able to have all of the market share to myself. And that's what you have with Lifevantage. Okay, the other thing that I look at is timing. Timing is very important. If we were looking at cell phones, for example, and this was a cell phone business, for example, which one do you think was going to do better? Right? I mean, I used to have one of these bad boys, and yeah, it was like calling in for an airstrike. They were crazy. Nowadays, your cell phone has more potential than all of the computers combined, all the computers that were involved in the Apollo space missions, all of them combined, more power in just one cell phone. So timing is very important. Again, you don't want to be behind the 8 ball or behind the curve. You want to be ahead of the curve. So the way it works is, if you look at, okay, yeah, my example is iPhones. When the iPhone 1 first came out, who knew about it? Not very many people. In fact, I've only met maybe 2 or 3 people that ever owned an iPhone 1. Really, Blackberries were kind of the thing back then. Well, but what about when the iPhone 4 came out? Was that important? Absolutely. For Apple, that was the launching pad that took them all the way up to the stratosphere. Okay? Now, how does that relate to Lifevantage? Well, look, Everett Rogers in 1962, he kind of developed this S-curve. And he says every business goes through this. So with us, right now, this was several years ago when Pro Tandem first came out, back in the early 2000s, right? It was kind of in its infancy. Right now, we are a $228 million company on that verge of skyrocketing. And then the question is that in 15 to 20 years, where do you want to be in terms of Lifevantage? You know, I missed a lot. I've missed a lot of business opportunities in my lifetime. You know, I wasn't old enough to invest in Walmart stock. I wasn't around for or I was, but I wasn't paying attention to the iPhone revolution. When I saw this, I thought to myself, I can help people. This is helping to, I'm not going to say that we save lives, because I'm not allowed to say that, but this is helping people. It's helping in their health. And I can take advantage also of the business aspect of it as well. So to me, it was a win-win situation. Something else that I look at when I'm looking into a business is who's involved in this, like who backs this. Well, if you look right here in the middle, this is Erin Brockovich. She's on our board of directors. Of course, you saw the ABC Primetime Report. Oprah has featured it and several times. This guy down here is Manny Pacquiao. Of course, you got Dr. Phil over here. Dr. Phil first heard about Pro Tandem from Donny Osmond. Donny Osmond was on his show and talked about Pro Tandem, how he uses it. In fact, you could probably Google that. I know that that's there. And then, of course, Montel Williams. If you know anything about Montel Williams' story, he was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. He went and spoke at a Lifevantage event, and he spoke about how much Lifevantage or the Pro Tandem has helped him, and where he's been able to reduce and even get off of many of the medications that he was taking. And then, of course, like I said before, we are the official sponsors of Real Salt Lake, which is a Major League Soccer team. Now, here's something that was kind of cool too, is that because we are publicly traded on the NASDAQ, in January, we were the featured company, because January is health and wellness, is something like Health and Wellness Month. NASDAQ invited Lifevantage to come and ring the bell and at NASDAQ in New York City. So that was kind of cool. It was a great honor. And here's what they said. If you look here at the bottom, what they said about it was Lifevantage, a pioneer in nutrigenomics, all right, dedicated to biohacking the human aging code. And isn't that what we've been talking about here? Nutrigenomics and how natural compounds can affect your body all the way down to the gene expression. All right. Now, this is the team that matters the most. That is the team that helps us, that we work with. So this is Patsy Caulfield. Patsy was the woman that I spoke about who followed up with me for 3 years. If you ever get a chance to meet Patsy, I highly recommend it. She is what I call the definition of a quiet strength. She's a very introverted person, but if you get a chance to meet her, just listen to her talk. She's so knowledgeable about the company and the products. But I tell you what, she does it with so much love and affection in your heart that you can't help but to fall in love with her. Here in the middle, of course, there's me, and there's my beautiful wife, Diane. Over here to the left of the screen here, that's Carrie Dickey. Now, Carrie was she was a bartender as well as a fitness instructor, and she is Pro 10, about to become, I think she's actually now gone beyond that to Pro 11. This is the fabulous Carrie Williams. Carrie is a Pro 9 in the business. She's from Phoenix, Arizona. She has a great biohack story that talks about her son who was diagnosed with autism and how she biohacked with him. When they moved, she went to a new school she enrolled him into a new school. This new school doesn't know what his diagnosis is because he's improved so much that no one knows that the kid was once diagnosed with autism. And again, Carrie, if I could say anything about Carrie, she is the definition of people over profit. She's got a tremendous organization. She's been involved with Lifevantage for over 10 years, and she has well over 80,000 clients in her organization. But I tell you what, you'll never find a more genuine and passionate person about helping people. All right. Now over here to the right of the screen, you see my man here, Randy Gary and his beautiful wife, Brenda. They are in San Diego, California. Randy was a police officer, military guy, and then Brenda was in human resources. Down here to the bottom right is Dr. Gandhi. She is the number 11 cardiologist in the world. She is a distributor in Lifevantage. She's a biohacker. And of course, Brett Brimhall, remember I said the nephew who had the handwriting issues? That's his nephew. Dr. Kwaja is a pediatric psychiatrist. And then over here to the bottom left, you got Mark Shinsato. Mark he's a corporate guy. Dr. Melody Rodarte, number 1 internal medicine physician in the Phoenix area. And then, of course, Carrie Williams, and then her neighbor, Maria Williams. So as you can see, there's people from all different walks of life who are both biohacking and sharing the story. Many of them have had tremendous results. All right, so that concludes our session, our biohack workshop. I'm going to just kind of close this down and let's see here. All right, guys, I encourage you. I hope that was helpful. I hope you learned something. I apologize if I rambled on or if I stuttered. I'm not a public speaker, but I certainly enjoy sharing with people and certainly sharing the good news that you don't have to be a slave to medication. I'm not against medication, but your body was designed to help itself. Now think about this. For thousands and thousands and thousands of years of human existence, we did not know what modern medicine was. We survived. It's only been within the last 50 to 100 years that we've been convinced that we can't live without medication. Well, hopefully, as I pointed out, even synthetic NRF2 activators are not anywhere near as good as our Pro Tandem. So guys, get back with the person who invited you and let them know what you're interested in. If you're not interested in any aspect of it, great. Let them know. Nobody likes guessing games. If you're interested in becoming a customer, fantastic. And if you're interested in looking at the business opportunity that goes along with it, again, feel free, whatever your interest level is, get back with the person who invited you, and we'll develop a game plan to help you achieve your goals. All right, guys, that's it for tonight. You guys have a great evening.
Thank you, Marco.
All right.